Good morning, my dear guys. Today we shall discuss the different concepts of national income. Before our discussion, I would like to tell you that, dear my guys, this is very excellent coaching channel, which will give you all exam help during the time of your while facing interviews and in different competitive exams. Directly, let us go to our discussion on different concepts of national income. Particularly, we shall discuss, at the beginning, we shall discuss the GNP. What is GNP? Gross National Product. GNP is the gross national product. National product. We call it as GNP. Gross national product is the GNP is the total value of final goods and services. Goods and services. Services produced in the country during a given period of time. During a given period of time. So GNP is the final value of goods and services, or the value of final goods and services. Total value of final goods and services produced in the country during a given period of time. So GNP is the money value of goods and services. Or if we express the value of the total output in terms of money, it will be called as gross national income. Okay, what is gross national income? If we express the total value of final goods and services, then that is called as then the total value of final goods and services in terms of money, that is called as gross national income. Gross national income. Okay, so gross national income is if we express the value of final goods and services, or the value of total output in terms of money, then that is called as gross national income. So gross national income is the money value of the final goods and services. We don't take here the intermediate goods, only we shall take the final goods and services. In simple words, GNP is the sum total of the money value of the final goods and services produced by a nation in a particular time, in a particular period of time, say a year. Okay. So it is the GNP, or gross national product, is the total money value. It is the gross national product is the total money value. Money value of final goods and services. Total money value of final goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time, that is say a year. So if we multiply multiply the quantity of different goods. Understand? Quantities of different goods and services with their respective prices. With their respective prices. Quantities of different goods and services with their respective prices, then we shall get the GNP. Okay, how we shall get GNP? If we multiply the different quantities of different goods and services with their respective prices, then we shall get GNP. Okay. Symbolically we can say GNP is the price into quantity. We may say symbolically GNP is equal to respective prices with their quantities. Okay. This is the quantity, final goods and services. Q is the final goods and services, and P is their market price. Market price. These are the Q is their final goods and services. Final goods and services. Okay. So if we multiply the quantities of different quantities of final goods and services with their respective prices, then we shall get a gross national product. Understand? So we shall get the gross national product. Understand? Now we shall see now this is our gross national product. Then we shall see the features of now the gross national product. Okay. We shall see the features of gross national product. What is the feature? First feature we know, it shall take only the features of GNP. What are the features of GNP? First we shall the GNP does not take into account the depreciation of goods and services during the process of production. It does not take into account the depreciation of goods and services. Goods and services during the process of production. During the process of production. Okay, it does not take into account. GNP does not take into account. Does not take into account. Taken into account. GNP does not take into account the depreciation of goods and services during the process of production. Or during the process of production, the goods, some goods, they weren't tear out. Understand? They weren't tear out. So the depreciation charges, it shall not take into account. Understand? So this is the first feature. GNP does not take into account the depreciation of goods and services during the process of production. Okay. So it does not take into account the depreciation of goods and services. Okay. GNP also excludes the transfer payments. Secondly, GNP excludes the transfer payments. What is this transfer payment? Transfer payment means the unemployment allowances, the pensions, the old age pensions, the unemployment allowances, these are not taken into account. Understand? GNP, the maternity benefits, okay, the free scholarship, these are not taken into account in GNP. Okay, these are the transfer allowances or transfer payments, like your maternity benefit, free scholarships, pensions, unemployment benefits are not taken into account by GNP. So this is the another feature of GNP. The third feature of GNP, we shall take only it shall take into account the goods and services which are bought and sold in the market. Understand? Which are bought and sold in the market. The goods which are not bought and sold in the market, or the goods having market value only, it take into account. Understand? So the goods which are not bought and sold in the market, okay, those are not taken into account in the GNP. Goods which are brought to the market for sale, only those goods are taken into account. Only those goods and services are taken into account. Okay. Then thirdly, GNP take into account the goods. GNP shall take into account. GNP shall take into account the goods which are goods and services which are bought and sold in the market. Bought and sold in the market. And sold in the market. I mean, GNP take into account the goods having market value. Goods having market value. Goods having market value are taken into account. Okay, the GNP takes into account. GNP takes into account the goods and services which are bought and sold in the market, or the goods which have market value. Goods having market value. Understand? So the goods which are not for sale or purchase, those are not taken into account. Understand? Again, the GNP does not take into account the capital gains. Fourthly, GNP does not take into account another feature is capital gains. Capital gains. What is that capital gain? Capital gain, suppose a scooter. Understand? Suppose a scooter of rupees 20,000 was sold for 22,000. For 22,000 rupees, 22,000. Then that 2,000 is not taken into account in case of GNP. While calculating GNP, these are excluded. All these are excluded. And another thing is that the intermediate goods which are used to produce or which are used in making the other goods are not taken into account. Understand? So we know GNP, first thing, the third column, in the intermediate goods. GNP does not take into account the intermediate goods. While calculating GNP, we exclude this. Intermediate goods are not taken into account during the time of calculation of gross national product. Understand? Intermediate goods means the goods which are used or in making other products. Those are not taken into account while calculating GNP. Okay. So while calculating GNP, we now share the features of GNP. That one feature is that it only takes it does not take into account the depreciation charges and during depreciation charges. Secondly, GNP excludes the transfer payments. The GNP only considers the goods and services which are brought in the market or the goods having market value, the goods which are bought and sold in the market, and GNP excludes the capital gains. Then GNP does not take into account the transfer payments like your pensions cases or unemployment benefits or like that. And lastly, GNP does not take into account the intermediate goods or the goods which are used in producing or making other goods. Okay. Now, this much for today, my dear guys. Tomorrow in the next class, we shall see the rest of the things. Thank you.